What's up, my nutbugs? It's your boy Josh from the Elestrals, and after a really long time, and it's been a minute, your boys finally won another Premiere. This time, the first of Firestorm, with a deck that was not really on people's radar that much, and that is Blizzstrix, a deck that I have gone on record to say that it would never win a Premiere. In its current state, is the best deck of the format that you shouldn't play at a tournament. But it did, and let's talk about why, and it's thanks to some of the brand new cards that are in Firestorm that I think bring this deck up to a whole other level, even after the Rise from the Ashes limit. Before we get into things, I should probably answer the question, why in the world did I even bring Blizzstrix to the Firestorm Premiere? It didn't particularly get anything. It did. It got Brumalynx, which is one of the most broken cards that this deck could have possibly asked for. And I also thought that it was just a particularly good meta call. It's really good into Like a Void. Gets to ignore it most of the time. This was also a deck that wasn't on anybody's radar, especially for the first Firestorm Premiere, which meant that a lot of the hate that was in people's side decks for majority of the Moonrise format, where this deck was very strong. The boom ads aren't going to exist. The divine blessings are out of the side, even though it doesn't particularly hit this deck anymore. Dense fogs, etc. Let's go into the profile and we'll talk about why this deck was really strong. Obviously, we have your typical suspects. We got 3 Snowlet, 3 Asprowl, and not 1, not 2, but only 2 Blizzstrix this time. Obviously, with the Rise from the Ashes build, this was the core focus of the deck, was getting a Blizzstrix into your underworld and then reviving it back with Rise from the Ashes for extremely powerful pushes and pops. That's just not the focus of the deck anymore. It's around Asprowl. Now, why do I say Asprowl? You can kind of see it here at the bottom of the screen, but it's Brumalynx that makes this card so good. This is now a card that you even want to draw half the time because of the amount of pressure that this card poses when paired with a card like Mountains of Boreas being a 9/6 instead of a 7/4. Something that I think we've seen over the course of Elestrals is that like a 7 stat line is fairly easy to deal with to some extent. Obviously, it's not the end-all, be-all stat line. If you bump it up to an 8 with something like Rhinosect, all of a sudden we have a problem. 8 is much harder to deal with than a 7 is. You can't pair a 5 with a Zeus to deal with a Rhinosect because of its stat line. Asprowl being a 9 means that no 5 can deal with it with a combination of one of the Divines. And it's also worth mentioning too that Blizzstrix being a 14/8 also means that you can't Eddy Zeus to beat over Blizzstrix anymore as well. So there's a lot of reasons why Asprowl is particularly good. I can even go into Champ Galaxy things where this having 6 defense also matters to deal with Champion Whale. If it's not any secret, this is what makes the deck so good, is Mountains of Boreas. Previously, I have gone on record even saying in like my last Blizzstrix profile, or the last time that I topped with this, you should be playing Mountains of Boreas in the side, specifically because it was able to deal with lunar aggro and the stat lines that Navi could deal with. They couldn't really pose a threat if you had the Mountains of Boreas on the field. Now we have a searcher for that, which means that Boreas now makes it into the main deck. And this card turns every single Elestral that you have into a house. Frost didn't have a naturally 5-statted Elestral, and I guess it still doesn't, but Brumalynx is basically like the next best thing that you could possibly ask for. Turns all of your Snowlets into 5s, turns Brumalynx into a 5, turns your Asprowls into a 9, turns, again, your Blizzstrix into a 14/8, and that matters. There were so many times over the course of the event that this would come down, it would be super unassuming, and then boom, you slap a Moralith down, 8 attack. You slap a Snowlet down, 5 attack. They don't out the Snowlet, you re-enchant, boom, it's a 6. And normally stadiums aren't particularly good, but with how many 2 and 3 drops that you do end up playing in this deck, all of a sudden you're giving your Elestrals almost Demeter buffs in terms of stat lines. That's really important. It also puts you out of Argo range for a lot of certain strategies. So that matters a lot as well, which Argo is one of the biggest problems for this deck, which I didn't see a whole lot of over the course of the tournament. For our extra consistency cards, we have the 3 Narpoon, which gets you not only your Brumalynx and your Snowlet, but also Enfrostix. Enfrostix is not particularly good, or at least it wasn't. Something else I didn't mention about Brumalynx is that this is a card that only has a when you cast condition. That means that if you special cast this, you still get the search anyway, and that's going to matter for a lot of different plays. For example, I've had this Gorgonst before, and like that's perfectly fine because I have an Enfrostix in my hand paired along with like an Asprowl. So what ends up happening is you let the Brumalynx die, you keep your back row if you have one, you Enfrostix, bring this back, you get your Boreas anyway, and then ascend over into the Asprowl with the Mountains of Boreas up, and now all of a sudden you have a 9/6 that's milling 4, and if you hit a Cedarsaur, if you hit the Blizz, there's no coming back. Like, the game ends. This happened a lot, where just getting access to Enfrostix now is a very, very strong play, where before all you were bringing back was a Snowlet for like a hope that you're going to hit something, and now we finally have a good target to bring back. Still sticking with the Morfrost package, this eats all the rabbits alive. Also searchable, pairs along really well with Moralith as well, which we'll get to in a second. If you're playing Blizz, you really have to play this package. You don't have very strong removal options except for Blizz, and if you don't hit Blizz and you need to remove something like a Pharaohgeist or a Draking or a Leica Void, this is a great way of doing so. And although expensive, it's still really good at swarming the board and making sure that you out defensive threats as well, without having to rely on the field spells and Moraliths as well. Yeah, you gotta play it. You have to play the Morfrost cards. Also on 3 Moralith, Shocker. These are also some of the cards that are very horrifying in this deck because, again, Moralith under the Mountains of Boreas is an 8/6. And Cedarsaur as well becomes a 6/8. All of a sudden, you are now hitting over their 5s, which means that this also can beat over things like Astrabbit, which is our last consistency card. Cedarsaur, although really good, don't get me wrong, before was much more of a like mid-range, like defensive body that like guaranteed that you could ascend into like a Blizzstrix on the following turn. Now this is one of the most aggressive bodies that you can have because it gets up to that 6 stat line under the Boreas. So you'll see it in finals. This thing was an absolute house every single time it was milled. And there's even some times too that like even hard drawing this is fine if you have Boreas up, just because it has a huge stat line. Obviously, it still feels bad to draw. Like, I'm not saying that you want to draw Cedarsaur. Rabbit in the previous versions of the deck was specifically to find your Rise from the Ashes, newly limited. I still don't like Rabbit. I don't know what card would go in a spot over this, but a lot of the games that I played Rabbit, I lost. Maybe not a great source of data on that one. The other really interesting stat is that every time I cast Rise from the Ashes, I think I lost, which that's a weird one. Granted, this is not like a Blizz Turbo list like it used to be, but I think that there might be an argument to not play Rise anymore. I know it sounds strange, but you're not hitting Blizz as consistently as you were with it being at 2, so maybe there's an argument to cutting this card. If you do end up playing 3 Blizz, don't cut the Rise, but I'm not super sold that we need to play this anymore in Blizz. Do with that what you will. I might not be playing it in the future. Last up, we have our counter rune suite. We have the 9 counters, the 3 Gorgons, 3 Shield, and the 3 Tsunami. Funnily enough, Tsunami got a lot better with the existence of Champion Whale because Tsunami protects your offensive threats from Champ Galaxy. Champ Galaxy will always walk over a rabbit. There's nothing that you can do about that. However, if they Galaxy Champ and you have like a Moralith, for example, and you don't have the stadium up, and you Tsunami, all of a sudden this has 6 defense, not 4. So the Galaxy Whale cannot hit over your Moralith. So Tsunami is still a phenomenal option. Spearmath for the deck, I don't think changed a whole lot since the last time I played Blizz, but 2 Thunder, 2 Wind, 3 Water, and then the rest are Floor Mines. I think it's like 13 or something. Yeah, 13. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 13. So, super easy, cozy math. Now, you'll notice I did not play Ambrosia in the main, so you do have to be smart when you do use these 7 utility spirits. Just make sure that you're not expending them in the wrong order. Thunders are typically going to be the spirit that you get rid of first, if that helps at all. Moving on to the side deck, you'll notice that there have not been a ton of Firestorm cards. You're right, it's pretty much just Brumalynx, except for in the side, and you did see this in the finals. Didn't matter a ton, because it got Eruption in game 2.
Rosia! Last spirit of Rosia!
We are not done yet! Archaic Rage has life! There is a pulse! Everyone hold!
Eruption for game!
What?
No way!
Eruption for game! What is going on?
But it could have mattered, and that is Monsoons of Eurus. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation of this card, but it is very powerful for this deck in particular. And why is that? You can enchant up to 2 spirits, get any combination of wind, water to your field. We're never doing that because this suppresses each face-up card that is not wind or water enchanted until the next turn. And that is every card. Every single card that is an out to Blizz or the Blizz board can be monsooned. That is Zeus. That is Argo artifact stuff. Kinleo, Boombat, every single one of them. This card, when you see it, basically says you better have Earthquake. If you don't, extend handshake, GG's. Did I side this a ton? No. I didn't play against like any fire over the course of the tournament until finals. That warranted Monsoon coming in expeditiously, and it did come up. I saw it in game 2, and then I also saw it in game 3, although I didn't have the chance to activate it because there wasn't like a Kinleo or an Argo that was activated. Very strong against future sideboard potential plans for Blizzstrix, so this will be a mandatory 3 of going forward, guaranteed, especially since they're already on the spirits for it. We're also on a second copy of Mountains of Boreas. This is mainly for spiders or decks that are side decking extra copies of stadiums to counteract yours. Keep in mind too that if you're playing the second copy, like you can go Brumalynx, search the first one, it gets outed, and Frostix, bring it back, and now you have the second copy. So even if you know that they're gonna like Jolton, Search, and Arachne's Lair, you wait till they play theirs, you put yours on the field. Somehow they got to get to a second one because they don't have easy access to a second, and then boom, you still have another out to the lair. Same thing goes for like Island of Aeolia. I know some people are playing that for pigs. Lots of different options. And then also the one copy of Blizzard to search off of the Brumalynx as well for Argo strategies. I kind of decided mid-tournament that this is just not good, but it's fine. I don't even know what I would play over this because I'm pairing it alongside 3 Hurricane as well. So if for whatever reason there's like a back row matchup like Bears that you really need back row removal in to make sure that you live, Hurricane and Blizzard is an option that you can go with to make sure that you always get in free without any consequence. I don't know, just something to consider. Lots of back row hate in the side. Sided Hurricane, lost every game that I cast it. 1 resting and 3 Cryoblast as different options to deal with removal. This was mainly for Kinleo, and again, I decided that Monsoon was just better for that. Resting was actually for Majesty, like a turn 1 Majesty, and just hope and pray you draw it because you do not have an out to turn 1 Majesty in this deck besides like Heart Opening and Frostix and like losing to a Majesty attack for a turn. I don't know. There really isn't a good game plan for Majesty in particular. Then the last 3 cards, Poison Tipped Arrow. This is also for going up against like avoid strategies. You set this in going first to make sure that the Werepup dies before they full moon you. This is also good into water because Tsunami is not particularly good. A lot of the side deck was for water since we can't deal with Majesty super well. And all right, that does it for the deck profile. This is unfortunately not a deck that I would recommend playing going forward. And why is that? Everybody's going to be back on their Blizz side cards after this event. No one's going to disrespect this deck ever again. This was like a one-time shot in the dark miracle that this did as well as it did because no one was prepared for it. Look, people are gonna be prepared for Blizz now. You're not going to be able to get away with it to the extent that I did. You're not going to catch people off guard anymore. I would not play this deck. Can I be any more clear? Do not play this deck. This was like a one-time thing. I know a lot of you like to copy my decks. Don't play Blizz.